Gotta tell him. Crazy ass name. Alright. Trees. It's a story about a bunch of trees. No, I'm just kidding. There's a small town, small remote town where not too many people go, but tourists. Small amount of people. Small amount of people live on that little area or whatever of the mountain, but nobody really goes over there. You know what I mean? But the people that have lived there for a long time. So this person ends up over there. It's a detective, and she ends up going through the mountain. She ends up at that small little remote location. Starts noticing things. The missing person rate, the way that people were going missing out of the mountain was ridiculous. So she looked into it while she was there. Starts to see that it'd been going on for decades, you know? Um, so she keeps digging, and as she's sitting in the town, she's being, harassed by something um, the whole way through. Um, but it can never seem to really kind of get her, you know what I mean? And she can never really seem to make full contact with it. She can never really seem to see it exactly for what it is or whatever it is that's fucking with her. Well, there's a forest that they say she starts to find out about this forest that's in the mountains real close, and she talks about these. It talks about these trees, and about like there was a forest fire in the mountains, and that before the forest fire, that someone had been out there, something happened, nobody knows. This is as far as I'm gonna let you guys get in that. Nobody really knows what happened, but there was a fire. There was a lot of things that went wrong. There was a death out there in the mountain, and because of that, they say that that malevolent spirit or something like that never rested, right? And so they said to not go into those parts of the mountain, right? For a long time, those natives out there in the mountains would tell the people to not go out there, and they went missing. And so it's like she's finding that everybody's just disappearing in these parts of the mountains for whatever reason. As she starts to um, really figure out everything, um, none of it makes sense. None of it seems to make any sense. It's just people walking into a forest and never coming back, basically. And so, the whole time, like I said, something's harassing her to basically try to make her leave town or try to warn her almost like that she's gonna die or some shit. And she fucking doesn't care, very naive to it. And she keeps moving through the town, keeps digging, keeps talking to townspeople and shit that were willing to talk to her at this point because they're starting to see this shit kind of like start to happen to her. And they don't want to die. So they don't know what's going on there. They do, and they live there, and they just don't want to talk about it, right? And so what happens is this lady seems to figure out the location of the forest, right? She finds the location of the forest that's forbidden, right? The forbidden areas of the forest, that mountain. Remember, mind you, there's been like hundreds of thousands of people going missing in like fucking 50 years, like in like 60 years, there's been like 100,000 people that have gone missing recorded. There was like people in this town that had been going missing, and who knows how long it had been before anybody even started recording. You know what I mean? How many people were going missing in these areas? Um, and so like they start heading towards that forest. Her and a couple of people that she finds crazy enough to go with her. They end up in that forest, and they decide to camp out. So they camp out that night. Um, that night, things start to go wrong real quick. Um, they lose one of the three guys that were with them. They lose one of the three people that were with them. There's three people, including her. So now it's just her and the other dude. And that dude just like disappeared by the morning time, right? As usual, as expected. And these two start to walk into the forest further, and the daytime comes and shit again for the next day. The time comes where the sun starts to set, but they're already getting disturbed by something in the forest, right? It's like it's just they see a lot of things. They start seeing a lot of things. Um, they're not realizing that the trees are letting off certain chemicals in order to relax them. But also at this point, trees can let off chemicals in order to relax you, so you release an abundance of oxygen. The thing is that these trees are carnivorous trees. And these trees are known for eating people and luring them into the forest. And they say nature is a lot smarter than you think it is. And this story kind of expresses that idea into your mind a little bit. What happens is the trees start releasing certain chemicals out of their, into the air, so that way they can make them go crazy while they're in the forest. That way they could keep them there until they starve to death, or like, or they were. I mean, they're carnivorous trees, so the thing is, these trees don't move, right? They open, and they get them so high that they basically start walking into the center of the tree, and the tree just closes behind them, and all you hear is kind of like the screaming from the inside of the tree as like the tree closes, muffles out everything, and it's completely quiet again in the woods. Um, they start walking, and they start realizing that that's what these trees are, and that that's what this forest is, and that that's what this forest does, and you know what I mean. And so they start running, and they try to get out of the forest, because what she does, it gets him. She sees him die. He starts walking into the tree, right? This is that scene that I'm describing, um, is where she sees him kind of start to walk like mindless, towards the tree. She's like yelling at him, whispering but yelling at him, and he starts walking in the tree, and the tree opens, and he walks into the trunk of the tree, and he's just standing there, right? And then he starts screaming, like in the middle of the tree. And as it starts closing behind him, you just see him standing there, like he can't, like he's like fucking paralyzed by the tree. And it fucking closes behind him, and the screams are gone. And it fucking horrifies this girl. So this detective like gets up and runs. She doesn't realize, you know, what she had walked into. She doesn't realize how serious it is. And she starts remembering that there was books that she had read from the natives that had been discussing trees, like carnivorous plants and carnivorous trees and carnivorous. There was pictures of an ancient forest that, like it was, the stories had been told to her the whole time. Like they had been told and warned the whole time in a certain way, but they never paid attention to it. They were too naive to it. The city slicking attitude, the fucking fearless, whatever, prideful mentality of thinking you know everything when, humans don't know shit about the planet. And she runs. Um, it it intensifies with like she's seeing things. She's high because it's releasing certain chemicals into the air for her to fucking basically hallucinate. And they're like ancient chemicals in these trees. You know what I'm saying? They're ancient chemical compounds that make your brain fucking just lose itself. And she starts fucking hallucinating hard, you know, um, as she's running, and she fucking falls off the side of the mountain. You know what I mean? As she's running, and fucking she dies. You know, she completely falls off the side of the mountain, like huge cliff, flies off that motherfucker, bro. Smashes on the ground. Bam. You know, nobody knows they were out there. Nobody fucking. Everybody warned them to not go out there. You know, and that story ends with bears coming, wolves coming. You see the animals start to eat her, and kind of like cuts out of that scene, and then the ending scene is pretty much just like a pretty scary song, and then the forest kind of with the aerial view of the forest as you're leaving the forest, and it's like you're the only thing that made it out of that forest, you know, to tell the story of the trees, you know what I mean? And so like it's a story that I made up a long time ago, and I wanted to share that with people because I'd seen a lot of movies where they use nature and where they use the pheromone, the chemical compound release, and they use the the human usually is the monster, you know, or you've seen the mist or things like that where the trees make you kill yourself. So I kind of had to throw a little bit in there, you know what I mean, like that, where she kind of flies off the side of the mountain, you know what I mean. Um, Everything else is pretty much they eat you. You know, she was like a waste of food. Um, but the trees were feeding the rest of nature as well. You know, it was basically they were feeding on human that day. So I mean, that's what that forest